Welcome to the Trails Committee meeting, March 19th, 2024. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:29 p.m. We're going to do a roll call. When I call your name, let me know that you're here. Will Warren,
Here.
Satyana Sharma,
Yeah.
Tom McCoolier,
Here.
and Kat McKee here. Thank you all for joining. So first order of business is minutes. Sati did share the minutes, but I unfortunately had not circulated and had time to review, so we'll punt that till next time. And we'll just move on to our next order of business, which is the Peninsula Trail Phase 1 Mass Trails Grant Project Update Signage and Grant Report. So I think I got something from you, Lauren.
You did. Let me know if it needs changes.
I appreciate it, your timesheet. And Tom, if you could, in this next week, I don't know what your schedule is, but if you don't mind creating your timesheet, Carla from accounting has reached out about our reimbursement. It is time to submit a reimbursement and we need to demonstrate match, which much of that matches our hours. Do you have everything you need, Tom, to be able to do that with any efforts from our meetings and also from
my problem is my laptop, my original one died, and I had the calendar on that, so I have to recreate. So I'll try to put something together from that.
Okay, I think if you look at agendas, that would be probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the great thing was that Kat had put together sort of an agenda thing for the site visits too. So it reminds you, when the site visits were.
Good, yeah, that's great. Those are really good to capture because those are nice hours. And if you have any questions, Tom, I'm happy to help go through that. Also, yeah, so anyway, we need to get that. I also need to coordinate with DPW so they can pull payroll records, and we need to demonstrate their match based on the parking that they've put in for us. So I did just submit the most recent March 15th grant report. So that's just a progress report of where we are. And I've recently received an update or an email from our sign person at Fossil Industries. And so it's timely that we start teeing this back up. So, and I had promised to reach out to Sati, which I have not done, but I have done some work that we can talk a little bit about and structure so that Sati and I have some marching orders to go off and create some draft text. And it's going to involve, I think we'd like to talk to Andy Leahy because he's going to have a lot of great pictures that we might be able to use that he's been using in his talks, and also from Digital Mass or Mass Digital Archives, whatever words put together equal what I'm trying to say. They have a lot of historical pictures from the Sudbury Reservoir building of the dam and such that we can incorporate into some of our signage. So focused on the signage for just a moment, we talked about we'll need a trailhead kiosk, and that's going to go, we had one planned for the Route 30 Central Street entrance. So we'll plan to put a kiosk there. Eventually, the other side will need a kiosk, but we can wait. We haven't budgeted for that. We may have funds for it within our buckets, but we need to see how that plans out. How it pans out rather, for until we do that. But basically, because we don't know exactly where we're going to put it. And it depends on a number of things. We might have, if we eventually get a crosswalk, which we are hoping to, we can put some signage near the parking. If we don't, then we would choose a different location. When we put the boardwalk and bridge in, we'll have some entry point. So we want to kind of introduce, something there. So that's a little further out. So if we focus on just a trailhead kiosk now, DCR is going to have some signage they're going to want to put on the kiosk. And I'm going to recommend, I think the type of kiosk that we're looking at doing, we could do two things. One is a graphic panel that the sign company can generate using their designers with our text and images, and we pay for the design work, and they put something nice together for us. So it would be a little different than the kiosks in other locations, which are just wooden, rustic, beautiful, but what they are. So this kiosk might be a little bit different in that it would match the signage that we've been referring to. Does everyone have an image of that without me pulling it up? I mean, I could try to pull up an image, but it's basically the double pedestal. If you've ever been to a rail trail and seen the interpretive signage, it's, you know, a double pedestal kind of at a 45-degree angle, nice graphic. That's what we're looking to put in for that type of interpretive sign. So it would match that type, so it'd have a similar consistent feel throughout. So it's really nice. So whatever we put on that, we want to make sure those fixed panels they will stand the test of time. They won't need updating, but part of the kiosk should be for rotational signs like informational, like rules and regs, things that might get updated, and a space for stuff that we might want to post, hunting season, for example, and take that down at times. So like a part of a fixed sign versus an open kind of bulletin board type piece that we put things on. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yep.
So we can work out specs and stuff, but that's kind of the idea. Now, when we initially scoped out and talked about signage, we talked about 4 signs, right? We didn't want to fill it. We want to be very careful about where we're placing signs and what they're about. But some of the topics that we had mentioned, it's historic. We have environmental. It's a, you know, watershed and what are the other wildlife options, and so those are some topics that we want to kind of focus on. And the historic signage, I would suggest that it be maybe near a spot that has either an overlook, which, as we know, with that trail starting from, I'm always thinking from Central Street as my starting point, just so if in case I'm not referencing it. But if we're walking up the hill, you know, we have the pumping station, which isn't lovely, but the other side of the pumping station, that's the view. There's a little view there where there's a little, it's not a pond, but it's a water, you know, it's kind of a pond. And then you have more trees and you can see the reservoir out there. Some of that's built up in the spring and summer, so it's less of a view directly. But I was just there this past weekend, and you can really see some, you know, you can see the sun come through. You can see, we've seen otters there before, so you can see some wildlife. So, and I was thinking that might be a nice spot too, to put a bench and a sign, right? So we've talked about those things. So that's an idea. And that signage there, it could be one of 2 things. It could be focused on, the reservoir, or that could be focused on the watershed, because that's your view, right? Is the reservoir, the watershed, the wildlife. And then around the corner, if you remember, there is the old Main Street that comes through there. Now, as far as historical points, do we feel like that's something we want to call out? And we can talk a little bit about that, you know, that this is where Main Street used to come before they did that. One of the things I used ChatGPT, I plugged in to say what we were trying to accomplish and give me the history of the building of the Sudbury Reservoir, and tell me about the history of what it was like for homeowners and how their land was, you know, taken by eminent domain, and tell me about that. So it really came back with this amazing list, or this amazing story of history that I had not even really heard. Now we have to vet every word that comes out of ChatGPT. We do, you do. And you know, make sure it's accurate, and that we're not using verbatim what's being said, so it's not plagiarism.
But a lot of this is in the in Wikipedia also.
Yeah.
The the loss of houses and
Yeah. And I what do you guys think? Like, I don't want to have a negative tone, but I find that very interesting. You know, do you think that could be a part of what the history that we talk about? Not that people lost their homes, but what the community was like before and now what it's like, maybe. Or, you know, that's just part of the history. Is in the building of the dam, they basically had to go through this process, and this was a farming community. So all of this land was farms or whatever it was, right? And now it's not. So what do you guys think of that as being one of multiple topics that we talk about?
That will be nice. Yeah. I mean, instead of going, like you said, instead of going into the negative aspect of that, we can also,
Yeah, I mean, it is, some may
Yeah.
say, wow, that is pretty negative, but we don't have to make it,
Yeah.
we're not making it antagonistic. We're not making it, oh, look what the government did. We're just describing what happened because it's what was and now what is.
Mhm.
Okay, and then we can talk about, the East Main piece. And there was the East Main Street, and then I think there was also the one room schoolhouse, or am I making?
No, that's true. So you
Okay.
can see where East Main crosses across the reservoir where it came from, and then a one-room house.
Yeah, there's a foundation. We might want to be careful about saying there's a foundation in the woods, go find it, because people will. But we can talk a little bit about what that was like, and we can incorporate some of the pictures. And we can also, the things, because when you talk about history, you can get really deep and wide, right? So this is where we want to think about our QR codes, right? Where we will have the signs, we'll have snippets, and the QR code can go to a website with a lot more detail. So that might be a way we can not become historians, but like just tell more of the story and have it available for people who might want to, have that. And then for our visually impaired, is this something where we can incorporate the QR codes for an audio experience to incorporate the accessibility piece of it?
Sure.
Great. So Sati and I, what we could do, because we're going to work with the graphic designer and we don't have to come up with how it's going to look, right? Because we're going to ask them and pay for their graphic designer to come up with a storyboard, a proposal of what our signs can look like. And they'll need to kind of focus on all of them. So there's a common thread and some sort of, continuity or consistency of graphics between all of the signs so they match and they look well. So, okay. So then if we have, so there's also, we talked about a bench. So related to benches, so we might not put a bench where the sign is, for example, but if Will, you remember you were at the accessibility, the ADA consultant meeting,
Yep.
and when we determined right where I was talking about that, there's a hill that goes up to the pumping station,
Yes.
right? So right before that hill is where the accessible trail stops because the slope is not manageable, right? It's travel at your own risk and travel as you can, but we technically can't consider that accessible. However, he did note that we could put a sign down there to show the view of what they're, not able to see up above as a way of sharing that, and also put a bench, because something with trails and accessibility is you want, every so often having a seating area somewhere you can rest, right? And we can look up the guidelines. We don't want 1,000 benches, but we, just putting a couple benches for the rest factor would help increase the accessibility, meeting those criteria. Does that make
And
sense?
these would be benches that don't go into the ground.
I think so, because we want to be careful about digging. We want to be careful about what we're installing. We don't want to add a ton of concrete, which isn't, I don't know if it's very environmentally sound. We're in a watershed. This is DCR property. We want to be light touches, but we don't want people to walk off with a bench, but at the same time, we can look at what recommendations are. But I think where was I? Oh, in the town forest, there's a little bench that has a dedication plaque. And it's just sitting there. It's not tied down. It's not cemented in the ground. So I believe, we don't want people to toss it into the water either. So we can find a way. Perhaps we can do deep stakes, maybe spiral stakes, right? Like a helical type thing. And they spiral in so that it just can't easily be yanked out unless you're really trying to get at it. Something like that.
No, that sounds good.
Yeah. Great. So we'll look at those factors and get something in place for that. And then once you walk around the trail, you're going down the dirt road along the way. There is an intersection, if you remember, where you're very curious, you want to go to the left because you're like, what's there? But we're not supposed to. So we'll need some wayfinding signage there and some do not go in here. signage,
Right.
and we'll talk about the Bigfoot that lives back there and how if you go back there, he'll eat you. So that will deter people from going.
You're bordering on the Barbara Streisand effect there.
4:30 a.m. Remember? No, I wanted to get your that.
Okay, that
Okay.
sounds good. Yeah.
But no, we'll put some wayfinding signing up there for that. And then as you walk along, I think when we get to the views of the dam, right? Where it starts to trend, like there's a big hill down, but you can see the gatehouse. I think there would be a really nice for an interpretive sign there and a bench, because that's a beautiful view, right? Can you imagine just you take a seat, you look, and you're just watching, and the wind comes by, and it's kind of shady there. You're not super sunny, really nice spot to kind of look out. And so we can talk a little bit about the building of the dam there too. And maybe the people who built the dam, right? There was a lot of labor, and perhaps, you know, a lot of times with those large projects, casualties, that type of stuff, again, not being negative, but the impacts on the people, crediting the people who built the dam, who often don't get credit, right? Usually it's the engineers. Oh, this engineer feat. We want to credit the laborers, and where do they come from and who were they? That type of stuff. What do you think about some sort of example like that?
No, I think that'd be great. If we want to avoid crediting any engineers, we could just say that Elon Musk built it.
No, it's not that we don't want to credit the engineers, because the one thing I think is interesting that I learned, I just want to make sure we have any attendees. We do not. One thing I learned, I thought it was during Andy Leahy's walks, was that when by the time they built, well, we can also talk about why the reservoir was built in the first place, which was to feed water to Boston, right? Because they kept
Right.
going west, west, west until they went to Quabbin. But so, and we might want to stay away from, I don't really want to get into, if you're open to this, the whole infrastructure of the MWRA waterways and all the aqueducts and stuff. The reason being is they have that stuff on their website, and we were very careful in what we were able to use for words, and we clarified with them first, because we don't want to open up for security issues and stuff. We don't want to provide a roadmap of any kind, even though the information's on the web. We don't want to get involved in that. I find it completely interesting. So, maybe we can say there's the waterway system was built, and, you can go to MWA's website and check it out there or something, but just kind of keeping it light.
Southborough's participation in the MWRA and, the big reservoirs, really, they bored a tunnel under us, which is why we got and we got a nice cheap price on connecting to their water.
Yeah.
One thing we might want to mention, they built the reservoir, and it really was one of the first, and then they had to drain it and get all the trees out.
That's it.
Yeah,
But,
and then refill it, of course, right?
well, but I think that was Framingham, so we're on the same page, Will.
Okay.
I think what happened was Framingham built the Foss Reservoir, like there's
Yep.
1 and 3, I forget how they named them, but they learned by the time they got to Southborough, they realized they had to scrape all the organic matter out, right? And I think they had already built Framingham by the time they determined it, and I think Southborough was the first one that they didn't have to go in and re-scrape it. They learned their mistakes, and then I think, to your point, they had to go re-scrape Framingham. We'll confirm because if they had re-scraped Southborough, then we would know that. But I thought that was interesting, that they figured out a few things by the time they got out here.
Well, it was all very new when they first built it, right?
Yep.
I mean, this was,
and it probably was an engineering feat at the time.
oh yeah.
So I really appreciate honoring that whole process.
It would be interesting to know if it was contemporary with the filling in of Back Bay. The filling in of Back Bay took about 50 years or something.
Back Bay to build on it.
Yeah,
that was
all just well, that's why it's called Back Bay. It was all water, and they kept dumping rock and stuff into it.
Reclamation.
Whoever thought that was a good idea, that's not going to go one day underwater?
Well,
all the coastal areas that we build up. Why did we ever think that was a good idea?
Generally, they know how to do it, unless you live in San Francisco, in which case they They don't
Well,
really know how to build things, but that's a whole
maybe it's
different
just
issue.
that they weren't really thinking about climate change too and the water changing.
Oh,
So-
well, no, they weren't thinking
No, I'm
about
not going
climate.
into political now. I'm just saying, but anytime you're on the water, any coast, right? You think that flooding happens. So I don't know how
Well,
you can
Holland
possibly.
is full. Holland is made. I mean, they reclaim the land. That is how it exists.
Yeah.
you come from a very special state though, Kat, and that is that North Carolina does not allow people to insure their homes built next to the sea, right?
Is that a
So
new thing? Yeah, because they just
they
constantly
said,
get. Yeah,
they
Florida
constantly tell
too, probably parts of Florida. It's like in California, you can't get homeowner insurance because the forest fires, So
that's good.
anyway, but yeah, so we got off topic. But actually, what would be interesting is not to forget, and this might be a little tricky, the Native Americans that were here, right? The Nipmuc. If I don't know if there's other tribes here, but even before settlers were here, what were the Native Americans doing? Like, I wonder if we could kind of figure that out and have an aspect of, even if we are including, we have multiple places we can put information, including our website, and we can build on the website. So we might even have this a phased approach where
Right.
we're not going to try to do too much right away. We do enough for signage, and we have kind of a game plan, and we have some topics that we build out over the years and kind of expand. And that might be a fun way. Ooh, I'm getting excited. It might be a fun way to get to know the trail new every year because we roll out a new level of history, or hey, let's do this walk and focus on this piece. And oh, we updated our website with this, and that might be a couple year. We could play off of that for a while.
Well, we could definitely loop in the Algonquins, right?
That's New York State.
Why do we have Algonquin High School then?
Why did we get rid of the Tomahawk?
Well, that's a whole different issue, but we did name
know
our
that-
high school after Algonquins.
Yeah, that high school must be named for local, like, wouldn't there the
I would
Algonquin?
Well,
think so.
it's a Nitmic that we're on this
Oh,
part.
really? Okay.
I'm actually Googling it right now.
Cool.
Where?
Okay, so we'll put a sign there, and then we're going to need some additional when we start walking towards where we're going to cross the internal road, Stony Brook that goes into MWA headquarters. We have to walk across kind of like the paved area that used to be near the house, and then we have to show people where to go, that nice little mode area, and then we come across our newly built trail, and then the boardwalk and the footbridge. So we'll need some regulatory and wayfinding signage there. And I'm hoping that we can get away from installing posts, that we try to use, because there's going to be a mowing consideration that MWA is not going to want to mow around a post, right? Every time you put a post in, you've just created now a weed whacking requirement. So if we can utilize maybe the existing gate that says trail that way, or they have those posts there where the gates close, we just say point this way. Or if we can utilize that, there's a few nice lovely trees, I just don't remember what the visibility is, if we can use that, like just arrow to point here, so that we're not having to install a lot of extra posts. That would be great. And so then when we get to, now that concludes like the Mass Trails grant, just so we know, like that signage was like 4 signs. Actually, I think there was actually one more near the, and we can divide this up in a different way if we need to too. There was one to highlight the historic bridge, the double arch bridge that was built in 1890s.
Mhm.
But now we're getting kind of closer to the boardwalk and bridge, which will be part of phase 2. So we'll have to see how we're going to divide this out. But if we continue thinking about the signage, you walk into the woods and then you have your boardwalk, right? Now, if the boardwalk, I think that might be a great place to have some discussion around native species and the wetlands and what that means. A little educational piece on that, since you're going to be walking across the wetlands. And actually, I went there on Sunday just to see if I could walk there with my current situation. And I took a video, and it was interesting. I could hear, the various frogs and maybe it was just frogs making their, songs and stuff. So we can talk a little bit about that.
The
Then you walk
peepers.
peepers. Then you walk across the boardwalk, you have your natural surface trail where we're not going to put any signage other than go this way because we have to cross a gas line. So then you're coming up to the bridge, right? So the bridge is going to be adjacent to the wonderful double arched bridge. So we can put signage on either side. We can figure out what works best to highlight the structure of the bridge, the building of the bridge, and yeah. So then you're on Bay Circuit Trail. So that's kind of a shortcut of the signage. So does anyone have any extra thoughts or feedback on what we're thinking? So I think
I
our
like
next step would be just to do some storyboarding with USAT, and we can maybe go to the library one day and like sort out what we want to do. We can both bring some data with us and kind of have some ideas and piece it out. And then I will talk to the sign company and see what kind of time frame we're looking at. And then we can execute a plan to have the signs built, shipped, and then we need to look at installation. So so I think if we can move that along, Carla mentioned needing to get reimbursement by 8/31/2024 for the full grant. I need to understand what the 8/31 deadline is versus the 12/31/24 deadline, which is when the grant needs to be finalized and completed. I just need to understand if there's another deadline in there that I wasn't aware of for funding that needed to be finalized, or if that was a town deadline.
Well, when you say reimbursement, what do you mean by that?
So we've paid for the fencing, for example, and so we now need to get reimbursed from the grant.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
and-
reimbursable grant where we pay first, then they pay us, and we have to show our match. So the
Okay.
grant documentation, that report, you need a little bit of a master's degree to do that report. It's just a lot of details. So I joke, but it is what it is.
Right. I'm just wondering if maybe, the idea is that, it's can only be a year or something or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, we'll figure it out and work through it. Okay, so I think that is that. So I need to so our next topic is our next topic, and this is good, is phase 2, the funding application, the engineering contract, and the ARPA funds update. I think when was the last time we met? We met on 2/20. Had
Yes.
I met with the board already, or was I going to meet with the board to talk about our ARPA
Let me
funding?
see.
You're going to.
Yeah, you were going to yeah.
There's been so much going on. Wow. Yeah, so good news. So our ARPA funds successfully, we're keeping our ARPA funds.
Oh, we are. That's great.
Yes. So the board voted 4-1 to keep the funds in the buck. No, we did talk about this because we talked about sidewalks. Remember trails versus sidewalks? No, we didn't.
We never talked about the vote.
No, we didn't. We haven't heard. This is new news.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so it was voted to move forward and keep the funds as they are, and they want signed contracts by the 31st or the 30th of June, which we should be able and be in good place to do. So that's good news. And then we have a contract. The town, we basically have the engineering services from Beals and Thomas. The contract came in. I sent it to Mark Purple and Melanie. They doctored it up with, we met with town council. He didn't have any issues with it. They added the town contract to it, sent it back to Beals. So it's now being reviewed by Beals attorneys. And so they're going to look it over and get it signed, and then we'll be ready to move forward. In the meantime, I've been in touch with our CE Corps to get Terracon's conversation going. We've had a little bit of a delay getting connected on the call, but I've reached out and I'll reach out again to see if we can. I just need to understand Terracon's contracting and how we're going to make that all work. And then we need Terracon to talk to Beals and Thomas, so they can schedule that work. So there's still things to work out, but there's movement, and that's great news. And so once Beals and Thomas gets that documentation, everything contracted, then they'll be ready to start working with the Concoms. In the meantime, I'll be writing the Concoms to give them a heads up this is coming, so they're aware. I'll be providing an update to MWRA and DCR so they know things are happening. And then we should be moving forward with the geotechnical and the structural design work. So that's great news. And so because we also need volunteers to help build the natural surface trail, and some of the committee is broken. So I reached out to our friends at AMC. If you remember back in 2020, AMC volunteers the Bay Circuit Trail Association was absorbed under the AMC umbrella. So it's kind of AMC/BCT. So I reached out to the volunteer coordinator, Amber, and asked if the AMC would be open or available to help us build a trail. And so I met with her on a phone call a couple weeks ago, very excited about looking into, helping us do that. And so I have a meeting with her, a site walk on this Friday at 8:30 to take a look at the section. I don't think it's going to take very long to build out. I mean, there's going to be some tree work and stuff that we need to do. But I want her to take a look, and what we've asked for, and it's a little bit different than last time, is basically AMC leadership, a project manager type person with trail building skills will come out the first day and help us. Well, they'll have a plan ahead of time, but we'll plot out the trail. We'll train the volunteers that are there, and that may be all of us if we can make it. And I've asked for some of their volunteers as well, because I think we can't do too many volunteers that don't know what's going on, because that then can become unmanageable. But if we use this as a skills building workshop for ourselves, like we did in 2020, that's kind of just a wonderful opportunity and a synergy. So she got back to us and she said May 11th, Saturday, May 11th, is available for them to help.
Could we announce this at the town meeting?
Let's put a pin in that, come back to that, perhaps,
Who is the
if it comes up. So anyway, that I'm not dismissing you, Will, but just hold that finger for a second. So
Okay.
I just want to check with you guys. May 11th. It's the day before Mom's Day. Can't help it, but it's a Saturday. Is anyone available to come out and help build a trail?
Yes, I will be available.
I will be away.
You'll be away?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll video conference you in.
Thank you.
Just joking. Okay, so Sati, you said yeah?
Yes.
Thank you, and Will, great. And so basically she wrote back today, she said May 11th is available to get your trail project rolling with the AMC leader. So that will be the day that the training happens. And she asked, she said, so AMC charges $250 a day for fee for AMC leadership. And she had not mentioned it before, and that's fine. And that was a little bit different structure, but that's fine. We can use our Trails Committee budget to pay for that. And that's small dollars for what we'll be getting. So it's basically for their leadership to come out and help us train. I've also asked, I said, we want to build the trail, the natural surface trail, as accessible as possible. So where there's a slope, what switchbacks do we need to do? What can we do to make it because what we're doing is forward thinking, is like, if we can make what's around this trail to get to this trail accessible, then we've already done our work. The boardwalk and the bridge are going to be accessible. We'll have another small section of trail. It won't be very long, but it will be pretty. You'll be able to, kind of stand and be around the boardwalk. You'll be able to hang out on the bridge, look at the interpretive signage, just a nice little stroll, right? And so if we can kind of create this area, that will be another ideal. So the trail will have two, each end, I call it an end, it's really a continuation, but each end will have an accessible piece to it. So that's also what the 250 would be going towards, is someone who could help guide that process. and help us build to those specs as much as we can. And they've been working on a project, I forget what town they were in, doing a similar thing. I think it was in near Plum Island. It's not a fully accessible trail, but they're making it as accessible as possible.
What portion of the trail do you think we'd work on?
Yeah, so let me just remember, Will, were you with me the morning we did the site walk with the ADA consultant? We started on the one end, then we drove our cars to the other side, right?
Yep.
And you have to cross the road route right and across from Sunapee.
Right.
So that's the section. So there's the little pond there, right? It has wood, trees and stuff. So you have to walk down off the road into that section.
Yep.
Okay. So I did that again on Sunday because I'm with a device, I'm walking with a cane right now. So I wanted to understand what it felt like to be on the grass, to understand the slope with a cane, right? And it's definitely doable. But if you're in a wheelchair, for example, it's on grass, so it's not really doable. But if we're thinking in the future, like, and we had permission and it worked out where we had parking on the other side and we had a crosswalk and someone in a wheelchair, we could actually make a kind of a little path that goes there that is more durable for a wheelchair to have access to.
So this would be down that slope, sort of right next to the road there.
So so you don't have to go down that slope necessarily. If you come at an angle, Will, from
Understood.
if you come at an angle from Stony Brook Road that goes up to the headquarters and you kind of walk along the path, it's not really sloped. It does get sloped. And this is where we have to figure out, there's like a hump. I want to say that might be an aqueduct that runs under there and goes to the other side. I'm not quite sure I'm right on that, but it looks like some sort of hump. And so that's what we need to kind of get around. And then there's a slope going into the woods. But if you take it at a softer angle and not just head down, if you switch back and kind of go around the long way and come down easy grade, you can manipulate your slope a little bit better.
Okay.
So there is a possible way. And that when they get there, they'll say, yeah, this is going to work, or no, we're not going to be able to make this work, so that's the kind of the leadership and the expertise that we'll be getting.
Yeah, I guess the real question is, what percent grade do you want to strive for, right? Because that
there'll
really,
be what's defined by ADA.
I think it's like 5% or something, right?
Yeah, and I think you can exceed the slope for a small period of time as long as you have rest stops and it's for only a certain number of feet, right?
Okay.
You can't, like the slopes that we have at the front, at the entrance where we moved the parking up, that slope's not workable. And the slope coming off of Fayetteville Dam, like off of the, coming off of the trail next to Fayetteville Dam is not workable. Those things are too slopey.
Mhm.
I think that's a 13-degree slope. If we
Right.
right. So, but this might be there's some opportunity here. So they would help us build that trail in that little wooded section up to the boardwalk. And then on the other side, past the pond and across the gas line area, we build all the way to the bridge, right? So that would be the trail. And
Right.
when I say on the gas land, that's really just clearing the section of trail that we need, not going much further deeper. Remember when we were at Pine Hill Road, we got permission from the gas line and they said, don't dig deeper than a couple inches. That was fine. So we'll set something up there and then, connect to the bridge is the idea. And so there'll be a little bit of tree work in the first section. So I don't want to say it's just like easy peasy because there'll be some strategy we'll need to do and minimizing what we are removing. There's small diameter trees, but whatever we do remove, we have built into our planning that we would replace, with native species and stuff, and we can work with open space on some recommendation on how to offset our environmental impact by what we're removing. And I think we can also try to remove some invasives if we are discovering some in the area. So that's what they would help us do.
Okay.
So May 11th is the day that the leadership will come out, and I think we just have to figure out how we would schedule the rest of the work. I don't think we can do it in a day. I think we could probably, if we had a couple of days, longer hours, we could get a lot done if we had a number of volunteers on Saturday. If we had Saturday and Sunday, we might be able to make a good dent. And if we did most of the technical work while we had AMC volunteers, and some of the like clearing a path and making it, from on a flat surface is much easier to do. And we could do that separately outside of
Right.
the technical piece, and we just focus on the technical.
I
We'll make good progress.
I would think a lot of their expertise is going to help us is laying out exactly the path, right?
Mm.
Because
Yep.
you
And
can,
meeting those criteria. Yeah.
right. If you don't lay out the path correctly, you end up with a bad thing.
Yep. Yeah, even like even on Pine Hill, we could do some improvements on that path where we're going up that hill. If you remember, it's pretty steep hill off of Pine Hill Road.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if we could probably do a little bit more of a switchback kind of, but we agreed that we could do some trail improvements on that later, and we would do phase one as we had.
Right.
Which we need to take a look at that trail and see what stage it's in.
Mhm.
And see if we can lay down some appropriate materials to help with the weeding and such. Because I haven't been back there in a while, and I know as spring approaches, remember, were you there, Tom, when
It was
machete?
way over.
I was there when we were cutting it out for the first time, and boy, that was it's probably weeded over quite a bit.
It
right?
was thick, and when we first went through it, it always gives me pause when you look at us, you're like, can we build a trail here? And they just, we wiped it out. And that was DPW helped us with the bushwhacking.
Right.
And
Right.
now we have a brush cutter, yay. But now I'm afraid of it, yeah.
Do
So
you, by the way, can you drive with your thing?
yeah, I can. It's the other knee.
Oh, okay.
Lucky me.
It's your left knee then?
Yeah, it's my left knee.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's great news that we can have, the AMC is going to be willing to help us, and we're going to pull some other volunteers, maybe from the Worcester chapter, and see if people can come out and help us build a trail.
Yeah.
And that timing might work well. I was curious about the timing because the geotechnical needs to get in there. So I don't know how they're going to get in there, but if we built out the pathway to get there, it's going to just maybe help them access what they need to take the borings. I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
So to your point, Will, would we make this announcement at town meeting? If the opportunity came up, we could say we've already lined this up. For example, we have volunteers doing this. We have pro bono geotechnical. So when we get quizzed, which we're going to talk about next on why is this so expensive, we can talk about some of the ways we've tried to offset the costs.
Right. I just, I think there might be a lot of people who might want to, come out and help,
Yeah.
So if we can leverage some of those people. The other thing,
Yeah.
the other thing we could do is have like a flyer or something, but that's, we'd have to put the one together pretty quickly.
We are, and that's next. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. So I loved it that you're right on the same thinking. Little behind the 8 ball I am, but hey, that's where I'm living these days, and it's where I am. So that's the quick and dirty on the phase 2. So things are moving well. I'm happy, pleased that we're getting there. We do have some hurdles to overcome, which will be, making sure we get through the permitting process, and you never know what uncovers during that process, and doing the geotechnical borings. I mean, there's a lot going on, but if we can, I think once we get going, this will move at a pretty good clip. If I remember from Beals and Thomas, like a month, 45 days is possible once we get everything in place. So that might be great. And then we'll go to bid, and Beals is going to help us with the bid, which I'm really happy about. And hopefully we'll make it attractive enough to really get some interest and get this rocking and rolling.
Are we going to get any help from the pro bono people?
Yes. Yeah. So that's Terracon.
Great
That's what I'm
news.
referring to. I'm trying to connect with them on a phone call to figure out contracting. It's all moving a little slow. Not surprising, but so we get okay. So annual town meeting prep. So to your point, flyer. So we haven't done what we did last time, which was a lot of advertisement, right? So I'm not sure how this is going to go. It is what it is, but we can have a flyer. So I recommend we have a flyer. And remember last time it was an FAQ, basically, let's answer some questions before they come up. Let's put together a what the project's about, a quick overview, some bullet points, high level stuff, and answer some of the tricky questions, right? So if you don't mind doing a little brainstorming for a minute or three, and throwing out some ideas of what we could have on this. And I wanted to also, it's an opportunity to provide a map of this trail that we have not really made public yet as much. Now, we don't have a lovely cartographer, is that how you describe a map person, maker? So it's going to have to be, we have some simulations of a map. So we might be able to use that as, because I want to give people a visual of where this is, right? And that tends to be a point of where is this, and you know, that kind of thing. So we have an opportunity to incorporate a map. This might, if we do incorporate the map, it might be a 2-pager. It might be a stapled page situation where the first page is the two, you know, page 1 and 2 are the FAQs, and then we have a map attached, for example. So the map can be detached and used as they want.
I would say, I don't know, my preference would be that if we can put it on one front and back page,
Yeah.
because if you're writing FAQs that take up 2 pages, that's too much. People aren't going to read it. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a half page. Last half page will be the text. The
Yeah,
map.
yeah,
That'll
I
be
think,
good, because then it doesn't have to be a great map, because you're not going to see it anyway.
no, and well, the map could be on one side and the FAQs or whatever could be on the other, but
Okay.
it's the main thing is to get them aware of it, right?
Yeah, aware. Yep,
Mhm.
good. The other thing, so during our CPA conversation or CPC conversation about the CPA application, a few questions came up about who's going to, this came up in select board, who's going to use the trail, right? And we have good information in the application, and we're going to have to carefully pull this out, because to your point, there's a lot. And there's a lot of good stuff there about, you know, there's local, there's senior housing or 55 plus housing. If I don't know, that's not senior, but there's some housing developments around
Thank
this
you.
trail. What'd you say? Thank you. I'm right behind you there. There's no discrimination here. I'm right there. But there's some housing developments in the area. I believe there's a 55 plus at least housing development in the area that would be useful to the neighbors for that matter. And then we can talk about and include some really important quotes that we've been using from years of collection from people providing either feedback when we were developing or gathering signatures rather, and that type of stuff. So we have a lot of great quotes from the community about about how they value trails, right? It's an asset we're building an asset basically for Southborough, for the residents and for the broader community. And it's an asset that's going to last. If you think, you know, the bridge, I'll get the quote again, it's like 75 years. That's why it's more expensive. For example, we're using materials that will last a long time. And we can give an example of, you know, if we built it with wood in 20 years, we'd be looking at redoing it and going back for more money and that type of stuff. So this prevents that type. We're building in the history. I mean, this is the first time in, you know, in Southborough's history that we have a ADA trail. ADA, you know, a compliant trail. And even though I have to be careful, because remember, this CPC application is for this other side, the ADA criteria, the trail segment that qualifies is on the other side. So we don't want to confuse or misguide or mislead that this all is an ADA trail. So I'll have to be very careful with the language I use. But because we're doing some forward thinking about how can we make this as accessible as possible in the condition it is, using our AMC volunteers, guidance from them, pointing that out. And then also the fact that we're highlighting the history like we haven't done in any trail project in Southborough. It's the first of its kind, right? And I think tying, you know, really bringing in the historical piece of it and honoring the history and educating community to get, and I think when people understand the history, they're a little more engaged and speak a little bit to that. We have some goals and stuff that we talked about in the CPC application.
Yeah, I just, I think all that's great.
Okay,
We
keep going.
need to be pretty terse with it, so that people will read it. And also the more you say, the more likely you might be to get into trouble, right?
Right. So I got to be really careful. So one of the questions is, why is it so expensive, right? We had the same situation with the fence, the golden fence. So let's talk a little bit about how we approach this topic. It's going to come up. Okay. So we're not going to talk about everything history related to this project, the phase one, we're not going to talk about all the details. We're not going to talk about all the funding. We're going to really focus on this project. Why is it so expensive? All right. So first of all, we're looking at building, using the products that we're proposing is expensive, the kits.
Yeah.
But remember, our talking points are the kits are manageable. They don't require large equipment to install, and that's important for the area. And they last a long time, like 75 years. Okay, so with all of
Sounds
those
good.
benefits, this is why we landed. And we spoke to a consultant, but I don't know if we need to go into it, but I want them to know that we've done some research to get to where we are. And the committee felt that this was,
Who's
a
our
good
audience for this that we're talking
town
about?
meeting.
Non-general
Okay.
only.
All right. I mean, stressing the longevity, I think that's great. The other thing is just to say, look, things like this are not cheap. I mean, this is,
Yeah.
It costs
Mhm.
money to do this.
Yeah, it's a construction project, and the engineering costs are high when you're putting in a pedestrian bridge, just the way it is, with a boardwalk, just the way
But
it is.
it's
And
a
also-
major, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, also we can put we are trying to preserve the environment also.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
that
And-
study takes a lot of money.
And this is a major asset to the community for,
It's gonna last
recreation.
years.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
recreational a recreational resource and asset that's
Mhm.
gonna last for years. And we all know, I mean, there is economic benefit to building trails. Most of that economic benefit comes from having businesses around the trail, so we don't really have that leverage. But if we're building something that's pretty amazing and people are coming to Southborough, they'll tend to spend money in Southborough. If I know Southborough's ripped up by roads and we don't have a lot of that quaint downtown, but it is what happens when you build a beautiful trail. The other thing is the type of the user group that we're focusing on is people with mobility issues will be able to enjoy trails like they haven't before, and that never came to, I mean, we've always known that, but it always hits home harder when you actually experience it, which I will not be mentioning this but it just so happens I became that core user group in the last few months. And I'll tell you, as I'm recovering and I can't go on trails, I went to our trail because it's paved and my PT would allow me to do so. And I was on a smooth and steady surface and I felt safe and I could make that happen without re-injuring.
You can bring this up to Kat. You can, I mean,
Well, I don't want to appear to be using something that's going to
No,
be,
but it is something that
virtue
you can say
signaling
just
and I
by
wanna
the
be
way
careful.
kind of thing, by the way kind of thing, not like really
Yeah.
emphasize.
But it's true. It's like I can't go in
Yeah.
the forest as much as I can on this pavement. And it's the same thing with it's not even just people with mobility issues, but it's people with strollers and with young children, and they don't want to go in the woods. This is wooded, but not in the woods, and they don't have to feel like they're getting ticks because they're walking on a 10 to 12-foot wide path. And imagine having 1.9 miles one way. And another thing is like, oh, it's not a loop, but you don't always, it's just what we have. I can't make it a loop. It's not a loop, but you can turn around and come back and you can get some good exercise,
Right.
and it's quiet and there's wildlife back there. It's beautiful. So all those
Yeah.
things we'll try to highlight. Now, the other thing that we should probably point out that CPC mentioned that they were going to try to point out is that this money already collected does not impact the tax rate. I think it's very important that we say
Important
that
point, yeah.
because the taxes, then the tax rate is really a hot topic this year with the budget concerns and stuff.
Oh,
We just have to make it crystal clear that this does not increase the tax rate.
so
Um,
we're not being funded at all by taxes, but by ARPA and by community preservation and things like that.
Well, CPC is a surcharge on top of your property tax. So technically it is a tax, right? But it's already been collected and the
Right.
town's already voted. Like all of that is all done, known, and these buckets of money are there to be spent for this purpose,
Right.
not sidewalks.
Okay, so
It's a
it's
different
no
bucket.
additional taxes, basically.
No, right.
Okay.
So we need to make that crystal clear because people get very confused about CPC money, which I understand. If you don't know it, you don't know it, and it would be confusing.
Well.
So those are some pretty heavy talking points. What else do we have? One person said, who's going to use the trail? I mean, I can't tell you who's going to use it. I can just say that if you build it, they will come.
Mhm.
Well,
Right.
we had a lot of people come to go walking over the trail, remember?
Yeah, I mean, we had 60 people register for a trail walk. I mean, that's a lot of people. That
that'd
was
be an
just one
excellent thing.
year.
Yeah, that'd be an excellent thing to mention.
Okay.
Yes, I
And
could.
we did that multiple times, right? We did 60
Right.
people and I think we had 38 people another time. So,
Right.
we held history hikes and it brought a lot of people and it was the most well-attended trail walk that we've hosted since 2017.
Yes, and
So
I think
why would we assume anything different?
well, it's just we have proof, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, like, what do you think about this? So when people say who's interested in trails and what do they care, and I'd rather build sidewalks, we did collect 1,600 signatures and we have 38 letters of support on this project so far in total. And I think those numbers matter. Like this total project, this phase 1, phase 2, over the course of the years, we've collected 38 letters of support. For this project itself, we have what SPAC and senior council and recreation, and I think that's it. 3.
Well, trails are safer than sidewalks.
What was that?
Trails are safer than sidewalks because they are not in the traffic area. I mean, they are.
Yeah. Well, these are natural
But
sidewalks. These are nature's sidewalks. So hey,
yeah, natural side. Yeah,
use
Well,
your
and
word.
these provide recreation. I mean, sidewalks are
Yeah.
for getting from point A to point B, but
Yeah.
these provide contact with nature and recreation.
Yeah.
These are they're fundamentally different. And the other thing is that people will come to Southborough to go walk on trails, not necessarily to walk on sidewalks.
Yeah. That's a good point. Ooh. I'm gonna spin it.
Okay.
I'm not
Spin
gonna
away.
say I'm not gonna just juxtapose us against sidewalks. I don't want to have that narrative ever in any of our stuff because it's not, both can exist wonderfully. But I think the benefits of recreation, having recreational resources, we saw, and I don't want to play on the pandemic, but the recreational resources are extremely important to communities and to certain populations, certain people, and for health benefits. We all
Mental health benefits.
Yep, mental health.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So these aren't new facts that we're making up. These are known facts, very well established, and we're just doing our part to kind of bring this to Southborough. And Southborough we have to say at Southborough, the one thing is the crossing, the reason we need a bridge and the boardwalk is the Route 30 is impossible to cross. It's a dangerous section of Route 30, and the Burroughs Loop Committee, they've been working on this since, it's been a challenge since 2013 when they did the feasibility study to get around this, right? And so we're working on the solution, and this is where we're at. We're working on the solution. This is it. So if we want to get ourselves off of Route 30 and it's dangerous to walk around, then this is what we do.
Well, yeah, I had to walk from my home, which is south of Route 9, over to the police station a couple
You
days ago, and
did. So what road did you take?
I took them both. I took 85 on going one way, and I took the other way going to the Breakneck Hill. So and
So
in
you took
both,
Breakneck Hill Road to Route 9. How did
and
you
then
get to
straight
85?
Well, I went to the police station via 85. On the way back, I walked across the golf course and then walked down, to that curvy thing, uh,
Is it?
that comes out at Route 9 at the Breakneck Hill.
Mhm.
Oh, you mean the
White Bagley.
wide
White
back
Bagley.
Right, yeah.
along the
White-
causeway? How was that walking across the causeway?
Well, it's, in both cases, you're walking against traffic and you're watching the cars to see if are they going to swerve to miss you or swerve to hit you? That's always the question.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's tricky. But yeah, so okay. What else am I missing? Anything that's compelling and something that is
Uh, it makes Southborough a more beautiful place to live, I guess. Um, let's see, what else?
I think you got.
I think you got enough. I mean,
yeah, I filled a few
generally,
pages already.
yeah, I mean, generally trails are well looked upon. I think the best evidence that we have, though, are how well attended the walks were. I mean, I was
Yeah, that's a
truly
good point.
surprised at how many people came.
Yeah,
To say
I
the
like
truth.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have support from the owners of the land, like MWA and TCR are fully supportive of this. And that's, we've got everybody on board. You
Right.
want to stop the progress right now? No, please don't. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll
What
work.
we're not asking for them to vote on something, are we?
Oh yeah, we have an article. All CPC articles have to go to town meeting.
Oh,
First,
okay.
they have to pass the committee's vote, then they go
Okay.
to town meeting to get voted on.
Well, then the most important thing is what you mentioned first, which is that the funds have already been collected.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So this has been decided on by the Community Preservation Committee,
Yeah.
and this is how they want to allocate funds that have already been
Yes.
collected.
Yes.
So
yes.
this is not
To
driving
benefit
up
the
taxes.
community. Funds
Yes.
that collected from the community to benefit the community.
And they're already collected. This is not going to increase taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
And we have the benefit, this is blessing, we have the benefit of the select board voting favorably and advisory voting favorably.
Ah, good.
Those are very favorable.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for brainstorming with me. I'll pull this together. I'm going to ask Mr. Hegarty if he'll add it to the website. We might have missed the deadline. I'm sorry, but it's just the way it is. If we can't get it on the website to share with, he puts all the town meeting information together. I'll ask very nicely. He may be able to put it up or not. It might be too late. If not, then we'll just go with a handout at town meeting and have that available. I'm going to, can I get a, because I do need to spend some money to get it printed probably at FedEx, and I'm going to print in color. And so can the committee, will someone make a motion to allow Kat to print? I'm thinking, so usually for town meeting, does anyone have a number that it's over 100 and sometimes is it close to 200?
I print 150, split the difference.
Yeah, 100, about
Mm.
100.
Because are there any hot topics that are going to bring the masses out this year? I mean, I should know. I've been not paying attention.
When is our this
We're number 30, I think.
oh, okay, yeah, hopefully, because the later it is, better it would be, because the thing is not many people would be around.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, later is better.
Yeah.
By the way, remember the farm dump, right? That we voted
Yep.
2.2 million. They've actually begun building the road to back to
Yes.
that area.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, I walked past it and I saw that they're actually beginning to build the access way that they'll need to clear that out and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I'm glad they're doing that. So does someone want to make a motion to allow Kat to get copies printed for the town meeting of the FAQ for CPC application?
So moved. I'll second the motion.
So Tom moved and Will seconded. Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote. Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Will Warren,
Yes.
Tom McCoolier,
Yes.
Kat McKee. Yes, great. We should also, if you don't mind voting on allowing the committee agrees to pay AMC charge of $250 to the, for leadership to assist in building out the natural surface trail of the phase 2.
Just say that again.
Yeah, sure. So would someone make a motion to have the committee spend, I would say, let's say up to 250 in case we need 2 days of leadership. It might not be, so it'd be up to 500, so it's 250 per day.
Okay,
That just gives us some leeway. So the motion to have the committee pay up to $500 for AMC volunteer leadership.
I
to-
wouldn't use the word, I mean, are they truly a
Volunteer
volunteer?
leadership.
Okay, let's just AMC leadership.
Yep.
Well, they kind of are volunteers, but AMC isn't, but all right, pay up to $500 AMC leadership to help plan and execute
So
Yeah.
moved.
hold on, I'm getting it from the
Mhm.
minutes. Plan
Second.
and execute the natural surface trail of phase 2
So moved.
of the Peninsula Trail.
So moved.
All right, Will, you're so anxious to motion. Thank you. And who wants to second that?
I'll second it.
Great. And then let's do roll call. Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Will Warren,
Yes.
Tom McClure,
Yes.
Kat McKee. Yes, great. Thank you. And so that's that. One other, so the work plan, Tom, you were going to work on the work plan.
Actually, I have been doing that. Actually, what I did is I actually refamiliarized myself with
Yeah.
all the trails. So I've been walking the trails and making notes. So I just have to put that together onto
Okay.
that.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of them extremely flooded, like unpassable.
Oh, where?
Middle, where the Faith football field, baseball
Yeah,
field,
yeah.
going
And the
across there.
footbridge?
Across the footbridge is fine, but after that, it's just.
Oh, really?
I was there, yes, Sunday as
Oh,
well.
this is probably like 10 days ago.
10 days, yeah. So I was there too. I wanted to practice walking on an even surface, and there, right past the footbridge where you're talking about, there is a lot of water there, and people have put down pallets. So I
Yes.
want to say that we have funding out of some of our ARPA money, the 12.5, to do trail improvements. And we had the idea of building some boardwalks and stuff, not a boardwalk, but we'll build a more permanent, something that can be moved as needed, but it's just one long structure, not
Right.
3 built together, because they're starting to get a little soft. They're going to become a danger. Someone's going to flip one over or flip in between it,
Yes.
crack an ankle, or any number of things. So I think this year we can look to see if the Boy Scouts want a community service day or have a project opportunity to kind of build a longer boardwalk for that area, and any other wet areas that we've found. What else?
Yes.
Other
So I'm
discoveries?
marking all that stuff on that plan, notes and stuff like that.
Great, thank you. We do need to think about spring cleanup. We can do that at our next meeting. We do need some volunteers to help us with that, so we need to figure that out. I guess we have Earth Day and stuff coming up too. That could be we don't want to compete with the trash pickup, but it might be a day that we've had volunteers before where we've been able to do some trail cleanup. So if we think about that a little bit early, we might be able to coordinate a couple groups to do some work.
Yeah, that's what I also been noting, that is like light, medium, heavy trash and stuff on my notes.
Thank you.
So,
That
it
would,
might be, with Earth Day, we could say these type of trails, because some of them I just take care of, like
Yep.
9/11. It's small. It's like a grocery bag. That's why I miss those plastic bags in the grocery stores.
Yeah.
Those notes would be of interest to me because the Rotary Club we're sponsoring our Earth Day event, and
Yeah.
we're actually handing out to participants. We're handing out a high visibility vest, right, which they can keep so that
Oh, nice.
they'll hopefully will keep them a little bit safer as they go through. But having some
Great idea.
pointers as to what areas have a lot of trash would actually be very good.
Yeah.
In general, the trails are pretty good.
I know that we are really lucky. It's just usually around trailheads or where there's a trail
Yes.
coming out at a road, you'll see a lot of trash there. But yeah, I agree. Like, we're really lucky to have that be such a nice experience. So thanks for doing that, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I just have to put it all together into that spreadsheet. Then I like to review it with you and then present it to the committee.
Yeah, that sounds great. And then we'll get that. We can take an excerpt of that, what's relevant for DCR, and come up with that work plan and cross that T this year. I do have an announcement to make. It's just gonna be quick and easy, but I received Isabella's resignation today, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah, it's sad. I will read it to you so you have it. She basically, where's the email? Really? I
Do you have
still
voices? I have voices
don't admit that out loud.
from my computer. I do have voices.
How did I? That's so weird. I can't see the email, but I responded to it, so that's strange. Okay, so she wrote, I'm reaching out to inform you that I'm resigning from the Southborough Trails Committee. I want to thank you for having me on board and getting to learn about how committee functions. I really appreciate and respect everything you guys do in the town of Southborough as a whole. It's remarkable. I apologize for my lack of attendance and interaction with the committee. It became a bigger commitment than I anticipated and didn't really know how to say I couldn't do it anymore. So thanks again for being our awesome selves, and she's grateful to have met and learned from all of us these throughout the years. So
Oh.
sad to see Bella go. We really appreciated all of her contributions. We can pick up, actually, I'll probably reach out and see. She sent that, remember the interpretive signs that she made, the sign that
Yeah,
she
those are very nice.
yeah, we should take that in honor of her and finish that up and get that posted, because that was part of our Choate Fund grant too. So thank you, Bella. And I've asked her to forward that to the town clerk so that he could process the resignation. And after town meeting, or maybe it will be an opportunity at town meeting if it comes up. We can say if anyone's interested in volunteering to help us finish these projects, you're welcome to volunteer, as we now have an opening. So we might be able to leverage the audience in that way.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I won't try to do too much, but if I can put a plug in there, I will. For any naysayer, if they're, are they, skeptical of what we're doing, why don't you join us and come find out for your, we can turn that frown upside down.
I don't know. We've got some pretty naysayers, so I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
my favorite. Yeah. So anyway, we'll post and see who we can get on board for our next committee member.
Well, you have to put it in for advertising and all that stuff, so it could be a while.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, but we always do. Anything
Mhm.
else from the committee that we need to talk about at the moment? Okay, this is a great meeting. Thank you so much. We got a lot done. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to anyone. Are you going to town meeting, Tom?
Yeah, I'm planning to.
Okay, so we'll see you guys and around, and I'll wave to you. And yeah, we're
I thought we were all
Article
gonna sit
30.
together.
Huh?
I thought we were all gonna sit together.
Oh, we could. I'm gonna sit on the outside aisle near a mic, so I don't have to walk very far when we have questions for our, we are not doing a presentation, just so you know. So basically the first time we did a CPA application, we didn't do a presentation. We were advised really not to. And we were there to answer questions. So we took the same approach this time, not to get up and answer, because we can work it through a FAQ and figure it out from there. And there's been, if anyone's watching the select board meetings or the I wasn't advisory, but CPC meetings, they'll have record of what we've been doing from that as well.
Okay.
Okay. So fingers crossed. This is the let's say it. I hope it's the last funding application that we have to do for this.
Don't jinx, don't jinx, don't jinx.
Right. And so we've come very far, and let's just all focus positively on a very positive outcome, and we'll see. We'll see by Saturday.
Yep.
Celebration is in order. And even if we don't make it, we still have a path forward in some other way. So not to be discouraged. We'll be sad for a day and move on.
Hey, did you guys hear also the weather's supposed to be crappy this weekend too, so I don't know how that's gonna.
I'm very excited about that, because it means we're not sitting in a sunny day inside, right? So that actually might mean we have
Touche.
more people, but isn't Sunday supposed to be nice? Because I'm going to go for
I heard both days supposed to be lousy.
Oh, okay.
What is
Well,
what is the weather going to be? Is it going to be rainy, I guess?
It's
Rain,
rainy.
rain.
Yeah.
Rain, snow,
Oh,
What?
good.
Snow?
well, up.
Possible.
They saying up in the White Mountains, they could get up to like 8 to 10 inches.
Well, but we're not even close to
If
the
I
white.
mean, today is Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Well, here's to some rain and not snow, and here's to an audience that's favorable for trails.
All right,
All right.
sounds good.
Thanks all.
All right,
Okay.
bye-bye.
I'll see you. Hey,
Bye-bye.
by the way, we'll talk about next meeting next time. Like I'll coordinate with you guys after Saturday and when we know a little bit more. I'll shoot out some dates, okay?
Okay,
All
Okay.
right, take care.
Bye.
all right.
8:44.